Hello, welcome to Mental Health Hour. I'm Dr. TAPO. I am happy to be here to be spending this hour with you talking about our mental health, the factors that impact our mental health, some of the struggles we experience as human beings navigating daily life. I hope you're well. I hope your loved ones are well. I hope you, wherever you are around the globe, that all is going well for you. Um, Before we go any further, just a reminder that the Mental Health Hour is for educational and informational purposes only. I'm here to provide what we call psychoeducation, not to replace your therapist or physician or somebody qualified to help you in your local community, your city, your town, your country. The I think it's really great that, especially I think since COVID, that a lot of us are accessing resources virtually online, and you can access therapy and counseling online. I encourage you to do that. Like they say, where there's a will, there's a way, and you just need to be willing to do the work to invest in your mental health, to heal, to go on that journey of self discovery, self validation, learning and growing, healing, becoming healthier. So, the Mental Health Hour encourages you to seek help. And I also want to share that if you want to get in touch with us, please call or text 43778 3299, 437 778 3299, or email infolovebay@gmail.com. So I'm always excited to read from listeners and viewers, I guess now because we stream live from around the globe. It's nice to know that people are tuning in, listening in, people are reflecting and thinking about the topics that we share here on Mental Health Hour. So thank you to Love Bay Radio for providing this platform. Thank you for taking the time, putting in the effort to keep Love Bay going and growing so that we can engage with each other, commune with each other from wherever we are in the world. So thank you to the founders of Love Bay Radio. Again, call or text 437 778 3299, or email infolovebay@gmail.com. Okay, so I do have a few messages from listeners that have sent in their questions and their comments. These seem more like comments, so I'll just read through them. I do want to say that I get a lot of messages about relationships and people cheating and breaking up and making up, and challenges in marriages and situationships and entanglements and whatever you want to call them. So there is a show on Love Bay Radio on Sundays at 3 o'clock. I think it's called The Marriage Hour. And you can tune in. Also, email and text them, same number, 437 778 3299, same email, infolovebay@gmail.com. And their focus is relationships. So if you have specific relationship issues, send them over to the Marriage Hour. Listen in on Sundays at 3 o'clock. Now, I'm not saying I don't enjoy your company and I don't want to hear from you, but it just makes more sense that relationship issues are, I guess, discussed in a show that is about relationship issues. Now, therapists and counselors do provide relationship or marital counseling or couples counseling, whatever you might want to call it. I do that as well. But like I said, there's a Marriage Hour on Sundays at 3 p.m. and just efficiency. And it makes more sense if you have specific relationship questions and issues that you want to share, send them over to the Marriage Hour listen in, learn, grow. The people hosting that show are really wonderful people, lots of knowledge, lots of wisdom. So I encourage you to listen in. And what I focus on is, and we've talked a little bit about this, like pathology, clinical stuff. So we talk about depression, anxiety. Those are the most common diagnosis people might get. We've talked about conditions like bipolar. We've talked about personality disorders. We've talked about addictions and alcoholism. So the more clinical stuff is what I focus on here on the mental health hour. So I really encourage you, if you have relationship issues or relationship questions, to send them over to the marriage hour. If you've been to a therapist or a doctor recently and you've been diagnosed with a mental health condition, or if you've been struggling with stress, sleep, your mental health. And yes, relationships are a major factor, and we've talked about that. They're a major factor in our mental health. And so, yes, we might touch on relationships here and there, but the marriage hour on Sundays at 3 o'clock, that's their bread and butter. That's their specialty. They are like the consultants, if you live in on that part of the world. Here we call them specialists, right? They are the specialists for relationships. And I'm just the clinician who kind of, my specialty is clinical diagnosis of mental health conditions, psychological conditions. So hopefully that will get everyone the information they need, the support they need, the help they need. I mean, it's a brilliant show. Honestly, it's a lot of wisdom, a lot of even validation, a lot of truth and reality as well, which I think we really need to navigate our marital and romantic relationships in a healthy way. Okay, so having said all that, let's read uh, the messages here. And surprise, surprise, they are about relationships. Okay, so the first one is from uh, Annie in North York, who says, very often I am told by my mom to chase happiness, not dreams. My mother is from a tiny island in the Caribbean and very old fashioned. She has worked in the same job since she came to Canada 22 years ago and is content. I dream big because I need better for my life. It would be cool to talk to parents about giving their children wings to fly so that they can excel. Annie, thank you for sharing that. And our parents will parent us the way they know how to do that. And if that is how she knows to encourage you, because you know what? There's parents telling their kids to quit chasing happiness and face reality, whatever that means. I think parents have a tendency to push us in the direction that they feel is best for us in the long term. And we tend to chase the directions that are most appealing and most attractive at that moment and at that time. Remember, they have hindsight. They've experienced some of the things that we have not yet encountered. So, as parents, they might be talking through the wisdom of experience. So I'm not saying this to agree with your mother, but I also don't disagree with her. What I am saying is it's good to talk and understand where she's coming from. And understanding doesn't mean you are following her instructions or direction. At the end of the day, it's important to have a relationship with your mother that is sustainable, that is healthy, that is solid. And that comes through understanding, not through agreement. You don't have to agree on everything to have a great relationship with your parent, but you do need to do the work to foster understanding. Where's she coming from? And I'm not talking geographically, like from the Caribbean, but through her experiences and her knowledge and her wisdom. Why is this the advice that she's offering you? And sometimes through dialogue, you discover that what she's calling happiness, you are calling dreams, and they're one and the same thing. But if you don't talk, if you don't listen to each other and talk and have these discussions, not with the intention of proving who is wrong or right, but with the intention of fostering understanding between you, then you find not agreeing on something is not contentious. It is healthy, it is acceptable, it is safe as well, because you've worked on understanding each other, listening to each other, and not on who's wrong, who's right. It would be nice if parents could give their children wings. I'm sure most parents, that is their goal in life. From the time, even before they conceive this child, when they're still planning and hoping that they will conceive, they're imagining in their minds that when this child comes, they're going to give this child wings. And then the child comes and the parent thinks they're giving their child wings, but the child is not seeing them as wings but as chains, because your perspectives are different, your experiences are different. So take some time to listen, to speak, to understand, and you might find that you're simply using different words for the same thing. If fulfilling your dreams is what brings you happiness, and your mother is telling you to chase happiness, then essentially she's telling you to chase your dreams. It's language, it's perspective, it's experience, and its difference. And that none of those things are bad. None of those things are bad. What ends up a bad experience is because people are in power struggles. Who's wrong? Who's right? It's my life, not your life. Stop telling me what to do. I brought you in this world, so technically I kind of own that life, whatever it is. Parents and children. And just yesterday, I was speaking to a young lady in therapy and encouraging her to put in that intentional effort to build a solid relationship with her father. She's now a young adult. It's so much easier when we're little. We adore our parents, and they just see us as cute and fun, and then we become young adults, and suddenly for parents it means you're facing the realities of life, and they fear for you, they worry for you. And for you, it's a stage where you're like, yes, I'm now an adult. I can do whatever I want. I can explore. I can do this and that and that. So work on your relationship with your mother. And then it doesn't matter whether it's happiness or dreams that you're chasing. You're still doing it with your mother right beside you as the support, lifelong support that she is meant to be. Okay? So Annie, North York, I hope that helps. Let's go to Port Hope. We have Lori in Port Hope. And Lori is saying, I have found peace and tranquility after a 5-year devastating breakup. I caught my fiance red-handed cheating on me. The journey has been very rough. I found a great therapist. She helped me to appreciate my self-worth. In the process, I found peace, tranquility, and myself. Well, Lori in Port Hope, thank you for sharing that. And definitely the journey is rough. People think you go for therapy, you come out feeling good. Not necessarily. Sometimes you'll feel terrible week after week. But if you stick to it and you do the work, at some point you hit gold. And more often than not, you find that you are the one who's always had that gold. You just let it get tarnished, let it get buried, let it get hidden by the stresses and challenges and difficulties in life. So therapy is definitely a journey that, honestly, in my experience, every human being will need to take at some point. And you are worth that effort. You are worth, I always say here on the Mental Health Hour, invest in yourself. Therapy is about investing in yourself. It's about seeing the value in you and doing the work to make sure that that value does not remain diminished. Okay, so do the work. Then we have Cinnamon, Pride LA. And Cinnamon says, I saw one of your YouTube videos. You were addressing a husband unhappy with his in-laws. So these types of messages are like gold for the marriage hour on Sundays at 3 o'clock. So anyway, Cinnamon says he seemed very controlling. So Cinnamon saw one of our previous sessions, and I remember this husband was complaining bitterly. Like I could sense the bitterness just from the text. So this husband was complaining bitterly about his in-laws, and this writer is saying he seemed very controlling. And Cinnamon from Pride LA is saying he needs to turn tension into teamwork by using the love language. A great book by Dr. Gary Chapman. I would like you to talk about the 5 love languages, and hopefully he would be listening. Thank you for sharing that, Cinnamon. But I'm going to refer this one over to the marriage hour on Sundays at 3 o'clock. Like I said, it's really worth your time if you want to grow your relationship, to learn how to be, I don't know, a good husband, a good wife, a good partner. The marriage hour is really, really a good resource for you. So I encourage you to listen. And lastly, but not least, hurting in New York. This is another relationship issue. Okay, says I was engaged for 7 months to be married in September. I think it's this coming September. Through eavesdropping on my fiance's phone call, okay, I found out he did not have legal status. So hurting in New York happened to be eavesdropping and found out that the man she was supposed to be marrying, I believe it's this coming September, did not have his legal status. So I guess he's undocumented in New York. She confronted him, and his excuse for not telling her was that he did not want to lose her. And although we repeatedly promised each other to always be honest, he knows lies in our relationship would trigger me. I've completely lost trust in him and called off the wedding. My family tells me that I'm being too extra. I feel betrayed and could never trust him. I'm seriously affected by his betrayal. How can you have a marriage without trust? That is a tough one. And sins of omission, that's what we call them, right? He didn't lie, but maybe he never just told you the truth. And that happens a lot in relationships. People hide things. You go into that marriage, you discover your spouse has a whole child they never told you about. Maybe you discover they've been incarcerated in the past. Maybe you discover, like in this case, that they don't have legal status to be in the country, meaning at any day they might be deported. What impact would that have on your life, on if you have kids together, on those children's lives? People hide things for many reasons. It's not always malicious. I've found it's often fear of the consequences, fear of losing somebody that they feel like, I cannot afford to lose this person. And so they lie, they hide things, they misrepresent themselves. And I'm not justifying it. What I am saying is people are not always malicious in their actions. Sometimes they are, but not always. And in cases where you might find that, okay, and this is a huge lie. It's not small. It's not a small thing. It's not a minor thing. It's not negligible. So, where you might look at the relationship, were there things, other things that speak to a pattern of withholding information, misrepresentation, lying, fabricating things, hiding things, pretending, all of that? Where you see repeated patterns, chances are it was malicious. This is calculated, it is manipulative, it is meant to achieve some purpose, hidden agenda that you might not have been aware of. Maybe you are a means to an end. It happens. People will pretend to love you because they want you to marry them. Then next thing, you're applying for residency for them, you're sponsoring their immigration. As soon as they have it, they're playing all sorts of games. Things change completely. These things absolutely do happen. And then sometimes they don't. Sometimes it was a huge mistake. They should have told you, but it's not a pattern of deception in the relationship. They've been honest about everything else but this. It's worth exploring if the relationship can be saved. Now, I'm not saying continue with the wedding in September, probably not a good idea, but you can postpone the wedding, do some work, go for couples therapy, talk about it, and see. But when you stick to I'll call it a knee-jerk reaction, when you first find out you're being lied to or whatever, there's that knee-jerk reaction, which is usually hurt, anger, despair. Like it's quick, it's harsh, it's deep, it's raw, and you react to that. But if you give it time, step back and have a look, sometimes we find that we were really just looking for an excuse to end this relationship anyway. And this is as good an excuse as any. So, yeah, move on. And yeah. But if, like I said, there is no ongoing pattern, like this is the first time, it is something that you can go for therapy, work through it, postpone the wedding, and then see. But make your decision not as a knee-jerk decision, but make it having reflected, thought deeply about whatever the issue is, how you feel, how it was presented, how they apologized, how they spoke, all of that. I always encourage forgiveness. Forgiveness, however, as is commonly said, is not reconciliation. Just because you've forgiven a person doesn't mean you get back together. If there's been an ongoing pattern of lies, disrespect, and all of that, you've probably made the right decision. If not, explore the option of mending your relationship and actually doing that work, which means they now have to do the work of proving that they can be trusted, and you have to do the work of being open to trusting again. It's not about making someone jump through countless hoops, apologize endlessly, and that's not what will renew the trust. What will renew the trust is demonstrated trustworthiness and a demonstrated willingness to trust. Okay, so hurting in New York, I don't know if this is your final decision. I would suggest, if both of you are open to it, go for couples counseling and work through this. And even at the end of it, if you decide, no, we're not staying together, I've had couples that have come to me to break up because they want to do it in a way that is healthy, a way that is permanent, and a way that allows them both to move on, having said and done all they needed to move on in a healthy way. Some of you might call that closure, whatever label you want to put on it. Okay, so I hope that was helpful to you, hurting in New York, and to everybody else who sent your messages in. Again, I encourage you, if you have messages and questions about relationships, we have the marriage hour on Sundays at 3 p.m. And you can call and text the same number, and they will get your message and they will get back to you. And they offer great, great wisdom Sunday afternoons at 3. So the number is 437-778-3299, or email infolovebay@gmail.com. So as I was saying, mental health hour is for psychoeducation, education and information that helps you make informed decisions about your mental health. I received a message a little last minute, so I'm not 100% prepared for it. But I did want to just kind of start talking about this as a way of letting you know that we will be talking about it further in coming weeks. But also, when you send us your texts and your messages, it's good to focus on the mental health issues and being clear about what it is that's been going on for you, so we can offer you the best advice that will help you make the right decisions on who to talk to, how to seek help, where to seek help. I have recently reopened my private practice myself, so I'm seeing clients again. So feel free, if you are looking for a therapist and you're in Ontario, Canada, or other parts of Canada, you can reach out to me, and you can send that message. If you have family, loved ones that are looking for a therapist, I'm open to that. So somebody, well, they more like called, and it's very recent, and I just got this late afternoon. So like I said, I'm not fully prepared for it. But we have someone in Toronto who is talking about depression and suicide and the impact of that on the family and those left behind. And the question is this preventable? So some years ago, I had a friend whose friend died by suicide. So we used to use the term committed suicide, and it's not in some ways acceptable to use that phrase anymore, committed suicide. But when I reflect on it, when people die by suicide, is what people would prefer we say, it is a commitment. It is a commitment. it is often planned out carefully, and that person executes that plan step by step. So it takes a level of commitment to end your own life. It's not an accident. And most people would have been contemplating it for a while until they get to that place where, and sometimes they'll contemplate it, find new hope, and it will go to the back of their minds. And sometimes they can't find that new hope. They go from contemplating to actually planning, to that commitment stage. They've committed, made that decision that they're ending their life. When you go for therapy, this is one of the questions we ask all the time. Have you thought about suicide lately? We call that suicidal ideation. Have you planned? So there's actually a difference between the contemplation or the ideation, which is the planning, which is, the thinking, the contemplating, it's there. And then there's the planning. And when somebody starts planning, chances are they will follow through or try to follow through. Sometimes the plan doesn't work. They miscalculate, for example, how many pills to drink, what chemical to use, and they might be injured, get sick and unwell, but the suicide didn't happen. They attempted. So we will ask about suicidal ideation. We will ask about suicidal plans. We will ask about attempts. Why we ask these three things distinctly, like I said, is because to a sad extent, it is normal when people are under a lot of pressure for a long period of time to start thinking that way. Most people, like I said, will eventually find a solution, find new hope, come out of that dark period, and it ended as simply an idea, a thought. For those who don't, that idea, that thought continues to grow and grow until it becomes their central thought. They wake up in the morning, it's what's on their mind. They go to bed at night, it's what's on their mind. They're now going to that planning stage. It's not just they actually start imagining it, they actually start researching it, looking into it. They might start saying goodbye. And one way people start saying goodbye is they start giving away their stuff. You know, it's their favorite album or their favorite, are they called albums? What are they called? Records, right? The vinyl. You know, it's their favorite treasured vinyl and they're giving it to you. And you find out they've also given other favorite things away. And you know they've not been in a good place and things haven't been going well. When you see that, be forewarned and ask them. And you don't ask, are you okay? That's not the question to ask. Because they will say, yeah, I'm fine. Often, once they've figured out their plan, you will find maybe they're even socializing more, they're reaching out more, because they're in that process of saying their goodbyes. They might even seem more elated, happier, because now they know what they're going to do. And as twisted as it might sound, they're thinking, I'm going to be the best version of myself for my loved ones because I won't be around anymore. So they might take their kids out for ice cream. They might do all these, like, and you think like, oh, they're okay, they're fine. But it's because they've solidified the plan. They now know what they're doing, and this is a way of saying goodbye. I mean, think about it. If you know your life is going to end on Sunday evening, what do? You say your goodbyes. You show everyone that you love how much you love them. You become the best version of yourself you absolutely can be, because you know after Sunday you won't be around anymore. So it is a commitment. It is a commitment. Most times it's not impulsive. So they give away their things. They seem a little different because they've made a plan and they have committed to executing it. So, as I was saying, I had this friend some years ago whose friend died by suicide. And I remember saying to the friend, which he didn't take well, but I'm saying it to you as well, to follow through with the suicide plan is one of the most selfish things a human being can do. And we don't want to think of them as selfish, especially when they're gone, right? Because we want to think of them as they were suffering, they were hurting, they were lonely and isolated, but they also had to be selfish to do it. And what that means is they cannot anymore think about, but if I do this, what about my mom? What about my child? What about my best friend? They can't think that way anymore. The only thing they can think about is themselves and the release that they need from what they've been suffering. And that's what I mean by selfish. Because sometimes we think, but how could she do that? Or how could he do that? We know that men, statistically, men attempt and succeed at suicide at higher rates than women. Men also tend to use more violent ways than women do. And so we often will think like, how could they do that? What about their mother, their father, their friends, their children, their spouse? How could they? Didn't they know they were needed? They were loved? They had to be absolutely selfish because they get to a point where they're not thinking about that anymore. They've said their goodbyes. They've done what they can. And the only thing that they can feel right now is that promise of release. It will soon be over. I will get to rest. And this is why sometimes the people most shocked and surprised when a person takes their own life are the people closest to them. Most people, family members, spouses, children, best friends, they don't see it coming. They know that, oh, Bob has been having a hard time lately. Uh, I've offered to be there for him. I try and call him every now and then. And sometimes those efforts we make to be there for them are just reminders to them of how bad things are. So when they pick up, they will tell you they're fine, they will laugh, they will whatever. And when they put the phone down, they're back to thinking this will soon be over and she won't have to call me anymore. She won't have to worry about me anymore. All they're seeing is how they will be free, they will be released, they will end it, And so it's a very selfish position to be in, and they need to be that. They need to be selfish, because if they start thinking of other people, they won't follow through. So does that mean we should guilt trip them? And no, that's not what I'm saying. So please, for those of you who are good at manipulating and guilt tripping and emotional blackmail and all of that, no, that will not help. What does help is asking that question. And you don't beat around the bush with this question. You just don't. Do not beat around the bush. You don't say, "Are you okay?" You say, "Have you been thinking about suicide?" And watch and listen for their answer. Hopefully, you know them well enough to know if they're lying or telling the truth. If you suspect, tell them, "I think you've been thinking about ending your life. I think you have been struggling and it has brought you to a point where you are thinking about suicide." Use those words. This is not a time to beat around the bush, to pussyfoot, to whatever expression you use in your part of the world. It is not a time to sweep things under the rug. It's a time to be honest, straight, and frank and use the words. Are you thinking about suicide? If they are honest with you and say yes, the next question is, have you been planning it? Have you been planning suicide? If they are honest with you and answer yes, ask them to share that plan with you. Also ask if they have attempted. You would be surprised how many people have attempted suicide and nobody knows. Nobody knows. So ask that question. And sometimes it's easier to lie to our loved ones, where you would tell a therapist the truth. And this is why I always encourage people, go for therapy. If you have a loved one you're worried about and you've suggested therapy and they're flat out refusing, go. You go. And then you come back and tell them, "I went to see a therapist last night to talk about you because I am worried about you. And I told them this and this and this and this about your situation. And this is what they told me. And I'm going back again next Wednesday." And you go back next Wednesday. If they responded to you, you bring that back to the therapist. "I spoke to my brother. He said da 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 da, and here we are." And carry on doing that, but always leave that door open. "I'm going back next Wednesday. I hope you will come with me. And I will go with you as many times as you need me to go with you." Sometimes it's fear of the unknown. I've talked a bit about the reasons we don't seek the help that we need. Sometimes it's fear of the unknown. We don't know what therapy is like. We don't know if they'll judge us. We don't know what they'll say or do. We don't even know what we will say in therapy. So be that friend, be that parent, that child, that sibling that will go, come back and say, "I went." Bring back that report and encourage them. "Next time I'm going on Wednesday, please come with me." We want to be vague, abstract, avoidant, dismissal, and even in denial about mental health issues, not only our own, but our loved ones. And what that means is things that could have been helped continue much, much longer than they need to. So I'm encouraging you to keep a an eye out for some of these signs in your loved ones and be open, be straight about it, be frank about it. Your therapist will never be like, are you okay? Your therapist is always straight, honest. They use the right words. And by right words, I'm not talking about technical terminology. I'm talking about the words that get you where you need to go. So if you suspect someone you know, you care about, you love, is in that space, tell them, tell them, I suspect you have been thinking about harming yourself, ending your life, doing something dangerous and destructive to yourself. Am I correct? Be straight about you do not want to dance around this, because unless you know what the plan is, it could be any day, any time. And remember, like, they will often, especially once they've solidified that plan in their head, they know what they're going to do, when they're going to do it, they might actually seem happier and more elated. And the next thing you know, they're gone. And it's always the people closest that are most shocked. And we start to question ourselves. Wasn't I enough? Was there more I could have done? Should I have said this? Should I have? And we have so many questions. It's not on us. It's really not on us. But if you do suspect, ask that question directly. You ask it directly. Are you thinking about? Have you attempted? Do you have a plan? If you suspect, if they do have a plan, what do you do with that? And you've confirmed that it's been in their, like, it's been on their mind, rather, it's been on their mind. Maybe they're planning it or whatever it is. What do you do with that? If they're willing, you can go together to the hospital, to the doctor. If you're worried and they seem resistant, especially, I have to say this, if you do find out that they did attempt at some point in their lives, and especially if it's more recent, don't assume they won't try again just because it didn't work last time or things changed last time. Don't make that assumption. The reason why we ask is because we don't make that assumption in the clinic. If they've attempted, our assumption is they will attempt again. They have gone that far previously. I mean, think about it. It's like the first time you run a stop sign or a red light. It's scary, but by the time you've done it 4 times, it's not scary or exhilarating anymore. It's nothing new. And sometimes attempts are like that. Suicidal attempts are like that sometimes. They try once, it's a scary, but it didn't work. Now they have time to reflect on it, to come up with a different plan, or to them what seems to be a better plan. They're more likely to succeed next time. So if you know that there's been an attempt in the last 3, 6, 12 months, encourage them to seek help. And if they won't, like I said, seek help for them. If you find evidence that they've planned and they execute, call the police. I mean, I know it's the really, really difficult thing to do. but call the police because the police can take them to the hospital. Call 911 because 911 can take them to the hospital. In the hospital, sometimes, depending on where you are, they can stay there for a few weeks, even under supervision, getting the help that they need with the psychiatrist watching over them and mental health professionals round the clock and setting them up when they discharge them. They don't simply say, now go home and be good. They set them up with supports when they leave the hospital. So there are helps for people that are in that place where they feel this is the best thing for them. They can be supported and helped, but we can only do that by being direct, by being assertive and firm about it. If your friend calls you and tells you, like, listen, things have just been so difficult, so hard, I don't think I can make it anymore, like this life, a lot of negative talk. Maybe they think it's the solution to their problem. Yesterday, I was reading, I think his name is Gus in Breaking Bad and in Better Call Saul. I think it's a TV show, Breaking Bad. And there was the black older guy called Gus something. I just saw that yesterday, actually, on my social media or something, that just before he got cast into that position on Breaking Bad, which is a TV show for those of you who might be wondering what on earth I'm talking about. Really, really good TV show. Just before he was cast in that show, he had reached a point where he had a plan. He had a suicide plan. He was going to execute it. And in his mind, this is how he was going to provide for his family and kids through the insurance or whatever it was. And then he got cast in this role on Breaking Bad, and things have been looking up ever since. But he had reached a point where, as a father, as a man, he had just divorced, I think. So his marriage broke down. He couldn't take care of his family, of his kids. And he reached a point where he felt that was the best step to take. Not all of us will suddenly be cast into a popular show that will make us famous. Not all of us will have our problems solved just in the nick of time. But something else I also came across recently was, if 99% of the world hates you, you're sitting there thinking nobody loves me, everybody hates me. If 99% of the world hates you, that means there's about 700 and something people that don't. I found that interesting. And I'm bringing it up now because you might look around you and not see anyone on your side, or not see anyone who you think would understand or would help. But guaranteed, I guarantee you, help is a phone call away. We have crisis lines. You can call a number, someone will pick up, listen to you, offer you support. Absolute stranger. But I guarantee you they're doing what they're doing with all of their hearts, and they genuinely want to be there for you. I know this because as a therapist, the people who come to see me are strangers to me. I'm a stranger to them. But from the moment I meet them, I guarantee you all I want is to support and help, and I want the best for them. You don't need to be well known and well loved by people for them to help you and support you. Sometimes the best people to help us are the people who don't know us at all, because sometimes the people who know us as strong, resilient, able, capable, all these words. And at that moment, you don't feel that at all. Your brothers, your siblings, your mom, your maybe even spouse or partner, girlfriend, whatever, will tell you you'll be okay, you're strong. In the moment that you do not feel okay or strong at all. But a stranger won't say that because they don't see you that way. What they're seeing is somebody who needs help, who needs support in their weakest moment. And that's okay. That's okay. When you go for therapy, you don't need to be strong. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to be the perfect person. It's one space where you can be the worst version of yourself possible, and you will get help because that's why you came there in the first place. So if you are feeling you've reached the end of your rope, you're in that space where you're thinking like, you know what, life, nah, it's not worth it anymore, or there's no more blue skies, or the best thing I can do for myself and everybody else is just end it. I encourage you, pick up a phone and call a stranger, call a crisis line, call 911. I don't know, call someone and tell them, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm feeling. I'm not strong, I'm not capable, and I don't know if I'll make it through the night because I've just completely lost hope. There are services that are there to support and to help. And the one qualifying thing that will get you the service you need is that you need it. That's what it is. That's what it is. So I encourage you to seek help. I encourage you to encourage your loved ones to seek help. And don't just be the friend or the parent or partner or child who says you need help or go see a therapist. Offer to go with them. Sometimes people need you to hold their hand because at that moment they're at their weakest. We need to stop requiring strength from people. I am one person, and recently I kept having this discussion with a sister of mine that, listen, I hate it when people tell me I'm strong because it's a demand on me that I be strong. And I'm not. And I'm not strong. So when you tell me, oh, Tapo, you're strong, no, stop telling me that because that's your expectation of me. If I'm not feeling strong right now, you telling me I'm strong is just you demanding it of me. And I don't want that. So we need to be straight with people. Don't pat them on the back, tell them they'll be okay. Don't tell them they're strong. Don't tell them they're better than this. Don't tell them the sun will shine again. None of that matters when they get to that point where it doesn't even matter anymore. Because that's why I was saying when we talk about committed suicide, it's a commitment. They've reached a place where they are now committed to doing it, ending their life. And you patting them on the back, telling them they'll be okay, or I'm here for you. How? How are you here for me? So be very straight, be very practical. I suspect you want to end your life. You want to harm yourself. You have been thinking about planning, maybe you attempted suicide. Am I correct? Verify. And once you've verified, call the police, call whoever can come and help. If it's not you, sometimes, like, why they take them to the hospital is they'll be watched for 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, whatever time is needed for that moment of crisis to pass. while they put in place a plan. So, what therapists will do is they will sit down with the patient or the client and come up with a plan. So, the next time you're feeling this way, who do you call? Who will come to you, or where do you go, or whatever it is, so that you don't attempt suicide. We'll continue on this topic next week. Thank you for spending this hour with me. I'm Dr. Tapo here on the Mental Health Hour. I'm wishing you a lovely rest of the evening if you're here in Ontario, Canada, or wherever you are in the world. And enjoy the rest of the month of June. Time is flying, people. Good night.